lot of work. Wobble, wobble, wobble. That was a lot of flippin' work. I hope it's tasty.
Hello, thank you for stopping by. I'm so glad you're here, and welcome to another random vintage recipe. Here's how this works. I will spin the prize wheel to choose a vintage recipe at random from one of these vintage cookbooks. I will make my grocery list and go to the store to do my shopping. I will come back, do the prep, cook the recipe, and at the end, I'll talk about how it tastes and how much it costs to figure out if the recipe is still worth making today or if it is better left in the past. So let's get right into this. I'm hoping for something delicious today. What do we got? Betty Crocker liver loaf. This might be all right. I do like liver in the right context. That's why I put it on here, because it seemed interesting, but also not something I would ever choose to make on my own, and definitely not something that most people would make today. So let's find that recipe in the Betty Crocker Picture Cookbook. This is a modern reprint of the original 1950 cookbook. It has all of the original, unedited, unupdated recipes. Liver loaf. Okay, it seems like a pretty basic, straightforward recipe. It's something that you can make fairly easily with what you have on hand, with just adding a few specific ingredients for that recipe. So let's go to the store and get this. That was a quick trip to the grocery store. I didn't have to get a lot. The beef liver was $1.89 a pound. The pork sausage was $5.99 a pound. I went a little fancier with the bacon and got this boar's head thick cut bacon that is $7.99 a pound. I picked up a fresh sauerkraut. Fresh sauerkraut has to be refrigerated, and you need to eat it pretty quickly after you've opened it. However, it contains live probiotics, which are excellent for digestive health, and it just tastes better in my opinion. I also bought a package of pre-made spätzle. I'm going to preheat the oven to 350 degrees and we'll get into the prep. This recipe was fairly straightforward to make. Let's walk through it and I'll tell you what I did. Brown 1 pan of beef liver in hot fat. I used canola oil. It's tasteless and it has a high smoke point. I put the pound of beef liver into a glass mixing bowl, and I will continue to use that bowl throughout the process so I don't dirty up a lot of dishes. It's not going to matter if there's cross-contamination at this point, because the whole thing is going to be baked for 45 minutes and that will kill off any bacteria. Once all of the beef liver was browned on the outside, I transferred it to a food processor. Next, I took my ½ pound of breakfast sausage and ran it through the food processor as well. This sausage is already ground, but I like to puree it some more just to make sure it has the smoothest texture possible. I used the sage flavor sausage because I thought it would go well with the liver loaf. You just want to be careful that you don't get something like maple or hot sausage if that's not what you're looking for. The next step is to add a ½ cup of soft breadcrumbs. I had some leftover hot dog buns, so I just threw one in the food processor and used that. I'm not rinsing out the food processor between things because it's all going to the same place and it will be baked. Then 2 tablespoons of minced onion. I just took a couple pieces of onion, threw them in the food processor again and minced them, then directly into the bowl. Now we're adding 1 teaspoon of Worcestershire sauce, 1 tablespoon of lemon juice, 1 teaspoon of salt, 1/8 teaspoon of pepper. I went a little bit heavier on that. 1 teaspoon of celery salt, 2 eggs, and ½ cup of bouillon. I am using a Better Than Bouillon semi-liquid stock base, so I just used a tablespoon and I think that's going to be good enough. Once I had that all mixed together thoroughly, I transferred it to my loaf pan for baking, and I topped it with slices of bacon. The recipe says 2 slices of bacon. I squeezed in 3. And I used a butter knife to sort of push the edges of the bacon down around the edges of the liver loaf. Then I just put it into the oven at 350 degrees and set the timer for 45 minutes. The leftover bacon that I didn't use, I will not need immediately. So I took 2 pieces, wrapped them in parchment paper, and put them into a freezer bag, labeled that, dated it, and put it in the freezer. For the breakfast sausage, I also transferred that to a freezer bag, smashed it flat, labeled and dated it, and put it in the freezer, so I'll have a little bit of breakfast sausage anytime I need it. While the liver loaf is cooking, I went ahead and got the spätzle started. That's just boiling water. Put the spätzle in there and boil it for 20 minutes. That's super easy. So this will make a nice little dinner, not too hard. Most of it is sort of hands-off, waiting for it to cook, and I am excited to see how it comes out. Okay, it looks pretty good. The bacon on top is not quite as cooked through as I would prefer. I'm gonna put it under the broiler for a few minutes just to crisp up the top. While that's broiling, let me make myself a plate. A little bit of spätzle. I'm excited to try this sauerkraut. Okay, let's not let this burn. It smells good. It does have a slight liver smell to it, but it's not a heavy smell. It is hotter than the devil's fire right now, I'll tell you that much. Should I wait? I don't want to wait. I'm gonna try to slice myself a little bit. So the loaf slices really nicely. The bacon is a little bit trickier to get through evenly. There's definitely a mild liver smell to it, but I really like liver, and I think mixing it with the sausage will help tamp down that liver flavor for people who don't necessarily like it. Beef liver really is a great value considering what a superfood it is. Very high in iron, very high in protein, $1.89 a pound. It's really just one of the best protein sources you can get. So learning to like liver, in my opinion, is a great idea. Here's my piece. Let's dig into this and take a bite. Very good. I like it a lot. I like liver. The liver flavor has cut down dramatically. There's a nice saginess to it, which I really like the sage and liver combination. The texture is very, very smooth, very tender, melt in your mouth. That is from putting it through the food processor to get a really fine puree. It's over seasoned a bit. If you make this, you can leave out the bouillon entirely. The spätzle and the kraut, perfect accompaniment to it. You could definitely go with, say, a mashed potato and a green bean if you wanted to be more traditionally American. But this is very tasty, and you can really change up the flavor depending on what type of sausage you used. I used breakfast sausage, the sage flavored, because it was already ground, easy to use. You could use pieces of sausage, like sausages, and puree them. You could play around with it a lot to really change the flavor. Mixing this half liver and half andouille sausage pureed might be a really good, that might be really interesting to try. So you could get creative. But this, I would call it a gateway into liver. That bacon flavor goes a long way to mellow out the liver also. So let's talk about how much we spent on the liver loaf and the meal entirely, because this is actually a really good value. That comes to about $3.20 per serving. You can't beat it. You really can't beat it. I give this vintage recipe my seal of approval. So many of these vintage recipes are such great values. All we have to do is stop and remember the lessons that we have already learned. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the future.